program. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. That's the website that you want to go to. We used to give the phone number out, but Sheila said, don't give my phone number out.
I did not.
Too many calls. 651-775-9194.
I said give out my email.
651-775-9194. Just go to ourhealthyhomes.com. You can connect with us there. The 4 pillars of a healthy home, of course. One is your house, the structure itself. Second one is your ecosystem, what's going on inside that house. The third one is your body. Move your body, keep it strong and powerful. And lastly, your mind and spirit. We talk about each and every one of those to create that healthy home. All is needed to be in place, strong, or the roof comes down, you got a problem. So today in the studio we have Trish Perry. She's an author, speaker, business coach, organizational coach, and she's written a book. We're going to talk about all of that during the program. But Sheila is in the middle of how many days now have you been since you've eaten anything?
16.
16 days. So here's what happened. She's 16. Here's what happened. We got a new scale.
16 days.
What?
We got a new scale. It's one of these. It's one of these talking scales.
Oh, get out of here.
Artificial intelligence. And so Sheila jumped on the scale and it said 1 at a time, please. so she thought she better.
No, not really. That was a joke.
All right.
Yes.
So you surely have not eaten for 16 days?
16 days. So some of you listeners might have heard us talk about the Complete Master Cleanse before. Mm-hmm. Some of you might know it as the lemonade diet. It's not a diet. It's to eliminate the waste. So we all have at least 10 pounds or more of old stool that's stuck in our bodies, in our colon pockets, our tissue cells, and then that goes rancid, right? It goes bad. And so that's a lot of what creates our problems with our health, is because we change our oil in the cars. We deworm the dogs. Like, we do all that stuff, but we don't do anything for us. And we need to eliminate the toxins because, like I don't have a toxin in my home. Like, I don't have any chemicals, nothing that says fragrance. I don't have it. But, over time, all those things will take down the body and take down the liver or whatever else it is. And so I'm not going to be removed from being able to live that way because I live in the world. So Keith and I typically do the Complete Master Cleanse 4 times a year, every quarter. But it's the program is 10 days. And so I'm feeling this is my 9th one. I'm feeling so great that now it's about making like my personal record. And so I've gone 16 days. My goal is 20, and it might be 30. And if you know anything about Young Living and the founder of Young Living, Gary Young had a tree fall on him when he was young, and he was paralyzed, and they told him he'd never get out of his wheelchair. And so he was depressed, so he thought he would try to kill himself by drinking this lemonade mix.
Starving himself.
That's what he thought, because he didn't understand, at that time he didn't know the chemistry of the 3 ingredients. And so 257 days later, he went straight 257 days out of his wheelchair. One of the biggest main components of allowing him and supporting him to get out of the wheelchair. The record is a woman that did 357. Keith,
really?
You want to break it?
No.
There you go. So this time I just decided to stay a little longer. So
I went 10 days, and then I stopped. I ate over the weekend, and now yesterday I had pickles
and beets.
Mm-hmm. Pickles and beets. What's wrong with that?
I'm getting a little bored with the lemon.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been using the orange vitality and the lime vitality just to like kick it up a little bit and give it a little bit different flavor. But I'm more now just bored with it than anything.
Right.
And really, I only crave avocados and asparagus right now.
Well, and I think you picked 2 really healthy things to be craving.
Yes, right. So yeah, so it's been going good. This is probably my best one as far as all of the elements go, how I feel and my energy, and so we'll see. The thing is that when you start doing this, you really don't have a clue how sick you really are. And so when you first do it, your first couple are pretty rough because you are really eliminating the mucus and the parasites and like all the old stool, and that can really make a difference on how you feel because you're stirring up those toxins and now you're dumping them.
Right.
So everybody should do a parasite cleanse once a year. You guys know I love my coffee enemas, and so that's what I did to save my liver. And so I love doing those. I can't do those on the cleanse because you're not supposed to have caffeine. But in any way, shape, or form. All right. So thank you for asking.
Okay, so Trish Perry,
Yes.
you're an author. We're going to start with the book. Is that okay?
That's fine.
I want to start with the book. So the book is Real, Raw, and Relatable. Corporate Badass Mom to Zen Mom. First of all, where did the title come from?
So it's a funny story that it's a combination of a coach that sent me an email and my son talking to me at the kitchen table. So I write a newsletter every week.
All right.
But the newsletter is always stories about my life, stories that have happened, and then ways that I changed that.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I got an email from Craig Neal, and he said that he gets the email every week, and he gets a lot of emails, and he doesn't open all of them, but he always opens mine because all of the stories are real, raw, and relatable.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, what a great title for a book.
Yeah.
So I asked him if I could use that. Yes.
Where do those stories come from? I want to just bounce for a second because you say once a week you're writing stories and stories about stuff that's really happened.
Right.
I'm looking at my own life and thinking, I'm pretty smoothing along here, and not a lot different stuff happens that I can. I
think
put
you'd be
into a
surprised.
story.
You would be very surprised.
I think you're really surprised if you really looked into it.
Do you kind of get into the habit then of thinking about them when something comes up? You go, ooh,
absolutely.
I got to remember that.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Mindset. What is one of the things that I talk about. And I was at Costco. This was last year. The first day it snowed. It started snowing, the first snowfall. And I had a woman on the left and a little girl and her mom on the right. And the woman on the left said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's snowing. I hate the snow. This means all the crazies are going to be out. And I can't believe this." And the little girl on the right looks up at her mom. She said, "Mama, it's snowing. Can we build a snowman?" And the mom said, "I am so glad you asked that. There's nothing I love more than building a snowman with you. I don't know if it's going to snow enough that we can build a snowman, but we can gather all the snow we can and put it in the freezer and see if we can do it then." And it was like a light bulb. It's like, what an amazing mindset. What an amazing example from these people on my left and my right. It was like the devil and angel kind of thing.
Yep.
And what a great example to share with my audience. So
are they short like that, your stories? I mean, just a few sentences?
Well, not a few sentences. Yeah. It's 500 words or less.
Okay.
And it's always about a topic. You know, I talk about failure a lot. That's one of the things that I am doing a 4-week failure program in May.
I'm an expert in that. Failure.
Well, today, my email that went out today was about self-imposed failure. So we set these expectations for ourselves, and if we don't meet them, we failed. Well, I had a client who turned something in. Her boss was thrilled with it. She said, next iteration, here are some things we need to talk about. And we talked, and she went from thinking it was a failure because she didn't put as much time and effort in as she wanted to realizing, oh no, I can change this, right? So that's what my stories are about.
Okay, now I'm starting to run down a rabbit hole here now. So
That's right.
you mentioned that people, they set goals and fail to reach their goals, and then they see that as a failure. I'm curious about your thought about goal setting, because to me, that kind of we're running out of time already for this segment. It's so quick. We're going to talk about goal setting when we come back. And is that an old idea, the notion of goal setting? Or is it something that you use currently? And then what about when you fail to reach your goals? I want to hear about that when we come back to break. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Give Sheila a ring-a-ling-a-ling, 651-775-9194. Ask her to coach you through a little bit of lemon cleansing. She'll clean you up.
Other cleanses are available too.
We'll be right back.
So he went the 10 days with me.
With Trish Perry, author of Real, Raw, and Relatable, Corporate Badass Mom to Zen Mom. And you can find that book on Harmonize with a Z, EU.com. HarmonizeEU.com.
Can I just say something?
Yes,
Speaking
you may.
of Zen,
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about my aroma yoga by our poolside. Talk about Zen. So it's a restore. So it's relax and restoration. And so that is April. Let me put my glasses on. It is April 5th, 6:30. There's only going to be 12 seats available. So if you go to ourhealthyhomes.com, click on the events tab, you will find all the events. But aroma yoga poolside.
Poolside aroma yoga.
Talk about Zen.
All right. When we went out to break, Trish, I said I wanted to know about goal setting. I have a notion about goal setting that when I was younger, I'd set these goals, and they say make the goals, outrageous and such. You can't shoot for the moon and then you'll get somewhere in between. You'll be greater than, but the problem is that when you fail to reach goals, many people that I know internalize that as a failure, and so the goal becomes the objective. Not everything that happened in between. I always say I have some degrees, college degrees and stuff like that, economics and business and accounting. I'm a CPA and all that. I don't use any of it. Everything that I use and everything that I've learned that's important, I've learned from failing. And so how is goal? Explain to me then the value of goal setting.
So that's so funny you bring it up, because I have a 4-week program called the Power Path Goal Success Program. Notice there's no goal setting in there. It's about your goal success, right? And the reason I did it was because during the pandemic, the Washington Post had done an article on naming one word to explain 2020. And it was things like failure, apocalyptic, death, lockdown. It was just so negative. And then if you read about goals, only 8% of all people who set goals actually make them.
Isn't that crazy?
So if I told you that your cell phone was only going to work 8% of the time, what would you do?
Yeah, you get a new cell phone.
Or your computer is going to fail 92% of the time, right? But we continue to set these goals and set ourselves up for failure. So I created this process. It's over 4 weeks, and a couple of things are different. First of all, when you set the goals, I ask 3 questions. The first is, how does that goal align with your values? The second is, what will you get when you achieve that goal? And then the third is, how will your life change if you've achieved that goal? And by asking those 3 questions, you get to your why. But to ask the why question, remember the first time you heard why?
What's your why?
It's, just the question why was usually, why did you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Condemning.
Why? It's very condemning. It's very judgmental. So I break it out into what and how questions. So
she always says to me, "What were you thinking?" She doesn't say, "Why did you do it?" What were you thinking? In other words, I must have been thinking wrong.
Well, it can go negative. That's true. But then the other thing I do is I have people start with a success story. Instead of setting goals, you create a success story for the year. If you're sitting here talking with me in December of 2023, what do you want to tell me? How successful was your year? And then you choose your goals from your success story. So you don't start with goals, you start with the success story.
Give me an example of that. Can you do that?
I'll give you an example in my book.
Okay.
As I was writing my success story in 2020, by the way, I do have to share this story, which is in the book, I think. Anyway, when I was in 5th grade, I had written a story about, anyway, it doesn't matter, but I thought it was so good. And the teacher's walking down as she's handing back papers, and my friend got a big smiley face and gold star on hers, and I'm just waiting for my gold star, right?
You're going to get 2.
You hit this one out of the park.
She hands it back, and there's a big frowny face on it. Talk about failure, right? And she said, you know, Trish, you're really good at art. You might want to stick with that because you're not so good at this writing thing.
Really?
So literally from that day forward, it didn't matter how many A's, 100% I got in high school and in college in English, that voice of you're not so good at this writing thing just bore into my mind. That was my mindset.
Did you send her a copy of your book?
I can tell you her name was Ms. Budza. I should look her up. Anyway, so when I started writing my newsletter, I wasn't going to write it. Michael Helmke is a great marketing person who literally talked me into doing this, and I did. And I started writing a newsletter every week. And I was like, what is this? So all of a sudden it became kind of natural. And as I was writing my success story in 2020, I asked people to just write it free flow, not really putting a ton of thought into it. And all of a sudden I was writing a book. It's like, where the hell did this come from? So I decided, well, I'm going to write that as one of my goals. So 2021, it was my goal to write a book. January, I wrote the first chapter. It was great. February, nothing. March, nothing. April, nothing. May, nothing. June, nothing. Nothing. I mean, I would sit down and try and write it. Nothing. I wasn't writing the right book. But this is where the difference in my goal setting comes in. I ask people to check and change every month. So check what's going on in your personal life, what's going on in your business life, what's going on in the economy, and what's going on in your environment. And I was talking to someone in June, my mentor, and he said to me, Trish, what about your newsletters? I was like, well, what about them? He said, put those in a book. Everyone needs to hear them. And I thought, nobody wants to hear this. And then I changed my mindset. And my mindset was, okay, 2022 is going to be about figuring out how I'm going to write the book. 2021 was that. 2022 is when I'm going to write it and publish it. So I wrote and published this book in 2022. Was that a failure? Because it had been my goal in 2021?
Right.
Not at all. But I had checked and changed it and said, it's not the right book to write. This is the right book. And so that's the thing about setting goals. It's okay to set them. It's actually great to set them, I think, because it gives you an intention of where you're going. But your goal should never look the same in December as it looked in January. Are you the same person?
No.
No, absolutely not. So what's happened in your life? And it doesn't just mean about changing it. It might be that there was a point where my business had just taken off. I increased my goal. So it's not just about changing it so that you don't have to do it the way that you had said it. It's about changing it to meet what your values are and what your life is like. Does that make sense?
It does make sense to me. And what I have come to believe as I get older is that my goals become more directional than specific. So instead of having a quantifying something, it's like my goal is to move in this direction, and everything that I do needs to help me move in that direction. And if I'm doing that, then I'm achieving my
Moving
goal,
in that
because
direction.
just like you said, because that's constantly changing and morphing along the way.
Absolutely.
If I suddenly find myself involved in activities that, and I do it because I tend to get down rabbit holes, and all of a sudden I'm involved in something and all excited about it. It's like, this is like completely out of alignment with my stated objective here, my goal of moving in this direction. And so then you have to kind of, figure out how you're going to extricate yourself from that and kind of get back on set again.
Well, I just had a group of folks get together for the Power Path Goal Success group coaching, because I offer group coaching every month after people have taken it. And he describes it this way. He said, Trish, I have always been a 5-pound bag person, and I've always tried to stuff 10 pounds in. And what happens is it starts to seep out.
Right.
And then I would never make my goals, and I would be really frustrated. He's like, now I'm only putting 4.5 pounds in.
Right.
So I also have a half pound of leeway to go.
Room.
And in the couple of months, I've already made my goals.
I want to hear more about the workshop when we come back from break. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Give Sheila a ring-a-ling-a-ling, 651-775-9194. Go to the website, ourhealthyhomes.com. Sign up for the poolside yoga experience. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, where we discuss the 4 pillars of a healthy home: your house, your ecosystem in the house, your body, your mind, and your spirit. And we are in studio with Trish Perry, author, speaker, business coach, organizational coach, and she's written a book. We're kind of talking about the book. I'll get back to that, but now she's got me going on this Power Path Goal Success Workshop. Can you just, how long of a workshop is that? I mean, is it a week-long thing? Is it an hour-long?
It's 4 1-hour sessions.
Okay.
So
in person, online, how does that
it's all
work?
done via Zoom.
Okay.
So it goes over a month. It's 1 per week for 4 weeks.
Homework?
So I call it success work.
Okay.
The reason I call it success work is how many of us like to do homework?
Right.
Nobody.
Nobody, right? But if the work that you're going to do is going to lead to your success,
You got to
you're
do
more
the work.
likely to do it, right?
You got to do the work.
So there are 9 C's. So the first class, I have you come with having closed your year and having clarified your values. So that's what we covered.
Is that
first
hard
week.
for people to clarify values?
Mm-hmm.
I think it is.
Yep.
I think it is too.
People will initially say, I know what my values are. That's not a problem. I ask people to narrow them down to 5 to 7.
What would be an example? I have an idea of what some of my values are.
So my values, I'll give you in order, are love, wellness, family, integrity, friends, and compassion.
Okay.
When push comes to shove, love is my first value.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to call it a foundation or an umbrella, my world doesn't work unless everything comes from a place of love. Wellness is my second, which I always would have said, yes, wellness is important, but I always put it at the bottom because everyone comes before me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That changed when I was laying in bed after having a double mastectomy and not being able to do anything for my family. And so for me, wellness is about body, mind, and spirit. And if I'm not there in those ways,
You got to take care of yourself first,
I
because you need to
right.
be there for everybody else.
And I know so many dysfunctional families.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how can I put wellness before my family?
You have
It
to.
was so hard for me to do. And I was so mad at my coaching school, which is Learning Journeys. It's like, really, you're doing this to me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, because it is. And so that was when that light bulb went off, was when I actually clarified my
But
goals.
so many people have a problem with that.
They do.
They really do. And if they just really knew.
Yeah.
That
There is also I could see a whole workshop just on identifying and defining your core values.
Yep. Yeah.
Because imagine there's a lot of people who think, oh yeah, I have a core values. Okay, name them.
Right.
And they're just their face just kind of goes white, and it's like, I can't really even name them.
It's not just naming them. It's I have people do an exercise where they do some forced ranking to see what's really important. But at any rate, so
well,
yeah,
the other thing too is people will state. I'm speaking for myself here. Will state what a core value is, but then you look at your life and say, now how is my life reflecting that core value? And it's like, something, buddy, that's not a core value of yours, because your whole life does not reflect that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's why I asked the question: when you set your goals, what values does it align with? Because if it's not aligning with those 5 to 7, you're probably living to someone else's goal. Like, I'm supposed to be a corporate badass mom.
Right.
That was my whole thing. I was a corporate badass mom. That was my identity. How was I going to be any different? So making sure that really aligns. And then the second class is about creating your success story, choosing your goals, and then committing to those goals. And when you commit to your goals, you do it in writing. So everything is longhand. You're not typing any of this. So now you have done 5 of the 9 steps. The next 2 for the next week is about constructing your plan and communicating your goals. When you start telling people what your goals are, you're more accountable.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it gets more real.
So then the last 2 steps are check and change, which you really can't do until you are implementing your goals.
Right. We call it plan, do, review.
Yeah.
You check and change at least once a month, and then celebration. And when people pull their goals and commit to them, and I ask them to determine what celebrations are you going to do when you make a small part of your goal, when you make a medium part of your goal, and a large part of your goal, and actually plan those ahead of time. And you can change them.
Yeah, sure.
But we don't ever celebrate. We achieve the goal.
Go on to the next one.
Go on to the next one.
Great. Let's go on vacation.
Your biggest motivation is through those rewards and those celebrations. Otherwise, neurologically, the mind just sees it as one more thing, and it just becomes rote instead of really realizing that success. And that's one thing I talk about when I talk about failure and success, and reframing failure so that you can maximize your success. So anyway, that's what the workshop's about.
Talk about, we hear so much about work-life balance. And I'm a man of faith, and there's nothing in the Bible that talks about work-life balance, right? It's work. You work, and that is your life. And you do the things in your life that you enjoy doing, and you work at them, and when you come home at night, you share with your family the adventure you had of that day. You went out and hunted, or you gathered wheat, or whatever it was. I mean, that was what the whole conversation is about. And now there seems to be this need to compartmentalize everything, to compartmentalize the work. And we don't talk about that at home now, because this is quote unquote family time, and like the two should never bump into one another. And I see that as a point of, in our practice, I work a lot with high conflict divorce, and that's a huge part of a lot of the conflict that arises out of a relationship, is this seemingly this need to separate the two.
So I think there's actually 3. So if you look at my logo, you'll see those 3. And what those 3 are is home, work, and life.
And they intersect.
And the 3 intersect. And the middle piece right here is that sweet spot of balancing those 3. They all exist. And to think that we can compartmentalize, we can't. You're a whole person. So the other thing is, your circles will never all be the same size.
No.
Sometimes your home life gets smaller, sometimes it gets larger. Sometimes your work life gets smaller, sometimes it gets larger. So what is the circle I call life? it's things like when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I had to have surgery and I had to be out for 6 weeks. Did that affect my home?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Did that affect my work? Absolutely. So where do I put that?
Mm-hmm.
It's really not a work or a home thing. It's a life thing. It
Mm-hmm.
happened to my life. So that's where I put things like that. So it's not, I don't think it's about how do I make all of these circles the same every single day. It's how do I balance this within my week or my month or my year? In that, you know what, there are some months, we all know this by working, right? Some months where you're just pedal to the metal, and then you deliver, and then you can come and spend more time at home. But my question to my clients is always, in each one of these, what is your BAM? And your BAM is your bare ass minimum. So what is your BAM with your family?
Mm.
You know, my BAM was that I eat dinner with them every day, that I see my children and I kiss them good night every day, or kiss them good morning, whichever it may be, that my husband and I share what we're grateful for every day. So there are some BAMs that you need to put in your life to really make sure that there is a balance. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I want to talk about people. Many times you hear them say, find your passion. What is your passion? The thing that you're passionate about, and then move in that direction or work towards that. I want to talk about that because I have a belief that 90% of everyone who is in the workforce in the United States of America is not passionate about what they're doing. They're showing up for the paycheck and putting the time in. So how does that coaching, is you find your passion, how does that relate to the reality of the American workforce and stuff when we come back from break? This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com, 651-775-9194. That's the secret number. Don't tell anyone.
It's the red phone.
That's the red phone. That's the hotline. Give Sheila a ring-a-ling-a-ling. Or just go to OurHealthyHomes.com, OurHealthyHomes.com. Sign up for that poolside Aroma Yoga. You're going to love that. Only 12 seats available. Sign up today. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Segment number 4 of the big program, Our Healthy Homes, OurHealthyHomes.com. The 4 pillars of a healthy home, of course, your house, your ecosystem in the house, your body, your mind, and your spirit. Spending a lot of time on mind and spirit today with Trish Perry, author, speaker, business coach. You can find her at harmonizewithazeu.com. Check it out. Order her book online and maybe attend or sign up for the workshop to help you get your life going in the right direction, which is what I want to talk about right now is when we went out to break, I talked about the passion. People say, find your passion, whatever you're passionate about, do that, and you'll do well. I've actually coached people about that in the same way. What do you like to do? Because I want to make some money. Everyone wants to make money, of course, naturally. So then the question is, well, what should I do to make money? Well, no matter what you think of, there's someone making a lot of money doing that thing. They're just the best at it. So, but for most of America, most of the workforce in the country, they're not working their passion. How do you come to the point where you can work and be involved in your passion?
Well, I ask the question in a different way, and I ask the question in what is your purpose? And how do you find your purpose? There are a whole litany of questions that I ask and exercises that I have people do, but honestly, one question that I can give to you right now is, and you can do it one of 2 ways. I suggest that you write your eulogy right now. I don't care if you're 21 years old. Write your eulogy. And some people are like, oh, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah,
Fine,
right.
Fine then. Write your Lifetime Achievement Award as if someone were introducing you. What do you want them to say about you? What do you want your life to have been? He played darts all of his life.
Yeah, and drank beer.
and drink beer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you want to
Yeah,
leave? If
right.
that's fine, then that's your purpose, that's your
Right.
passion, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I highly doubt that somebody wants to be known for drinking beer and
throwing darts.
throwing darts. They may want to be known for bringing joy to people's lives and doing that through humor and those types of things. And maybe playing darts is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But finding your purpose and then looking at those passions around it, how do those work in together? And the interesting thing about your job is your job doesn't have to be your purpose. Your job can support your purpose.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I see more.
So,
than
yeah.
anything.
But understanding that your job is supporting your purpose
Right.
versus just doing a job just to pay the rent.
Right. Makes the job better.
Yeah. Europeans often ask, we don't understand Americans.
Mm-hmm.
You live to work. We work to live. So, there's a really interesting paradox there. But the question is what you're doing supporting your purpose? Now that you have this money, now you can go out and you can volunteer and you can do things like that. I had a guy who he works for one of the cities and he does some building inspecting, etc. It's not his passion. His passion is being able to go out into nature and then come back and teach people about it. But his job gives him the money to be able to do that. His job is very flexible. He's able to take the time off to do it. So his job really supports that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just a matter of looking at it that way and changing your mindset about it.
Yep, absolutely. And, there are truly only three things we can control. Excuse me. Our mindset, our actions, and our efforts. And everything else falls out from that, right? You can influence things by those three, but you can't really control things. Like whether you interview and you get a job, you can't control that. The person who's interviewing you is the one that controls that. But if you do those three things, if you really control your mindset, your actions, and your efforts, you can absolutely influence it. But that mindset is the base. And so the base is, if you've got the base of the mindset of thinking, you know what, my job is supporting my purpose, then it gives you a different perspective when you go into work, and it's not so arduous to do every day.
Is mindset something that you can develop? I mean, there's people who are negative. They're negative, and
They
it's
are.
like, how do you get off of that? And what muscle? It's like a muscle. How do I exercise mindset?
Well, a couple things. First of all, it is no one's fault that they're negative. That's how we have evolved. So as human beings, what's our first and foremost thing that we strive for? And that is we stay safe and survival. The way that the brain has evolved is you have the reptilian part, and then you have this limbic system, and the limbic system is fight, flight, or freeze when there's danger. And when there's danger, you want to remember what that danger is. So think about when we were Neanderthals or whatever, and you're walking by a plant. Oh, if I eat that plant, I'll die. If I go this way, it goes by a bear's cave, I'm going to get eaten. Right? So our brains are actually built to keep the negative thoughts so that we stay out of danger. So first of all, it's not your fault, and it is your responsibility. Because now we have this newer part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, and that's your executive functioning, etc. And that's where your mindset is. You can control that. So how do you control it? One way is to really be in the present. Most of our time is spent in the past or spent thinking about the future. Very rarely are we ever in the present. And so I'm going to give you a really easy exercise to get you in the present. Take your thumb and your index finger and rub them together very, very lightly and close your eyes. And I want you to feel your thumbprint and your fingerprint. Can you feel those ridges?
I do this all the time.
What else are you thinking about right now?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Feeling it.
So you're present to how your fingers feel. Are you feeling those ridges? There's no time to think about that. You've now brought your prefrontal cortex back online. And you can start with a fresh thought process of, okay, I'm going to think positive. Now, I do a morning routine. So I start with breathing. I say affirmations. I do visualization. Those all put you in a mindset to start your day from a positive. If you're starting your day by opening your emails and by opening the news, you're screwed. Excuse my French. But that sends our limbic system immediately into fight, flight, or freeze, because there's always something that's scary.
Right.
Or
there's
that
never good
bothers
news.
you.
If it bleeds, it leads. There's no.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's good news, but that's not
at the end of the program.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
at any rate,
2
so-
seconds.
Leave them smiling.
Right.
So those are some things, people talk about change your mindset and then they don't actually give you a tool. So that's one tool that can bring you to the present. And then decide what you want your mindset to be. And how do you do that? Google it. What do really joyful, successful people, what are their thoughts, etc.? I mean, you'll get thousands of answers and try it on. Try different mindsets on. Try what works for you, what doesn't. It's you can't go from being negative to positive in one day.
Right.
It's a journey.
Right. It is a
Right.
journey.
And so you have to give yourself that grace to be able to take that journey. And it is a muscle. The more that you work that positive mindset, the more you're going to be positive, the more you're going to be positive. And it's just like, it's the spiral, but it's spiraling up instead of spiraling down.
The longer I've been to me, business, and Sheila and I think the same way, and it's like a game. And so the longer, it's a game that you never age out of. You can age out of football and basketball, but business you don't age out. You just get better at it. And I appreciate more and more the process of what's going on and experiencing what's going on in the course of a transaction or in the course of the interaction. The communication between the parties and the relationship that's built between the parties is actually more of a thrill than the outcome. The outcome is just like almost like, ooh, geez, that's the end.
Well, that's transactional, right? You're being impactful in the middle. The other thing is, I don't know if you follow Simon Sinek.
Yes.
But he's one of my favorite people talking about the infinite and the finite game.
Yes.
And business is actually an infinite game.
Yeah.
But the problem with business is everybody thinks it's a finite game.
Quarterly.
I'm going to be the best.
Quarterly.
Yeah, you can be the best for today, but who's going to be the best tomorrow? I mean, Amazon, nobody ever thought that Amazon would be as huge as it is.
Right. Wow, this hour went quick.
That's it?
That's it. The last segment of the program. So what I want to do is encourage everybody to go to your website, which is harmonize with a ZEU.com, harmonizeu.com. And then after you're done there, go to Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. We'll be back next week.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He said When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call me sugar anytime.